find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this can pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass. And I can't find a...
So, first things first, Alabama State Bar Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 7.2e, requires the following communication in all attorney the following language in all attorney communication. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers. My name's Harry Still, backwoods Southern lawyer. My buddy Paul Ripp's here with me today. We have Rains Russian via Google Hangouts, and we have a interesting show today. If you caught the beginning of our broadcast, Paul, why don't you tell us how you came across this little nugget?
Well, I understood that Fairhope Rotary was going to have a little run in the morning, and so I Googled Fairhope Rotary, and then all of a sudden was offered many types of Viagra. I kind of like that big boy they show. But anyway, I don't know what that's all about. I don't know if that's a consolation prize after the run or what, but very interesting. I doubt Fairhope Rotary knows yet that they're advertising Viagra. So we'll see.
Rains, how do they hack a site like that? Do you know?
You know, probably because whatever 85-year-old man who's hard in charge of that website.
The password is password.
Yeah, and it just, I mean, who could resist something like that? I mean, Paul, are you a member of the Fairhope Rotary Club?
No. No, I'm not.
I mean, I can understand why. I heard their requirements for joining are pretty damn hard.
Hard. That might be the key word here.
I'm back in middle school.
But if they're giving away Viagra, maybe I'll consider it.
Well, I don't know. The last time they gave Viagra to all the people at the Fairhope Rotary Club, all it did was make all the lawyers stand up for the whole meeting.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, folks. We're in podcast 17. And
we'll call it the meltdown.
Yeah, the meltdown.
The meltdown.
Rip Report Consumer Group. And first of all, let me start off by saying that Fairhope just experienced another sewer spill. Common. But Fairhope's one of the only cities on the Eastern Shore working hard at trying to do something. They got a good bit of money from BP and everything. But the what brings to mind me is that, you know, here you got a city council that just spent $2.75 million for land that they can't use, and now at the last council meeting, they want to take that same land that they can't use that they paid that much money for and lease it for farmland. So you got $2.75 million worth just sitting there being leased for farmland when they could have put it into infrastructure. That's the type of things that really grate on me when I see the misuse of city funds like that. But that's your council.
So has anybody watched the first episode of the A&E show called 60 Days In? Did you watch it, Paul?
No.
So this is season 6, and what they do is they take what we would call ordinary people from ordinary walks of life and put them undercover in different prisons around the country. And, you know, Etowah County Jail is infamous. I can tell you that I was the chief executive officer there, and when I watched this, when I watched the show, one of the things the sheriff pointed out was that 100. So it's a direct supervision jail. It was overbuilt strategically at the time by the county commission at the behest of the sheriff to house federal immigration and customs enforcement prisoners under a contract with the U.S. Marshal Service. So Etowah County was going to make all this money housing these federal prisoners, and of course, it was a one-sided contract. If they needed the space, they'd pay us $35 per person, per head. Well, there was no minimum. They didn't have to keep anybody in there, but we had to keep it staffed as if it was full all the time. You get that right, Raines? So
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it never produced the money that it was supposed to for, to help supplement the county coffers when it came to law enforcement. What it did do was, and this is what I call the Andy Griffin law. So you remember Otis, the town drunk? So he'd get locked up, and Andy would put him in jail, and Aunt B would bring him supper from Andy's house, right? So Andy, at the end of the month, would do a head count and send that number to Montgomery, and Montgomery would send him $1.25 a day for the food stuff and expense he went to of feeding Otis. That was on the books until October 1st, 2019. I've been bitching about this since 2003. So back in this point in time, Raines, you're a Mississippi boy. Tell us about Mario Centobie, one of the most infamous people who ever escaped from Etowah County Jail in Shawshank style. So go for it.
I got a lot of deep background on that guy. He was a Gulfport, Mississippi firefighter, and I actually know a guy that trained under him. I know two guys that trained under him, actually. He was a rescue diver. He was a dive master. He was basically the head of underwater rescue teams for the entire Mississippi Gulf Coast. All the 3 coastal counties in Alabama, including Baldwin and Mobile County, we service them as well. And even into St. Tammany Parish in Louisiana, they were the Gulfport Fire Department had this crackerjack dive rescue team. So if you had a problem, that's who you called. And sure enough, old Centobie got called back when the Sunset Limited derailed, and his team was the one that went over there. And
so I think the timing of this is kind of so the timing of this is kind of interesting too. The Sunset Limited derailed right over here in the Mobile-Tensas River Delta, and I don't remember how many passenger cars went into the water, but I remember the part of the story where Centobie was given some kind of commendation by the governor of the state of Alabama because he refused to stop diving until he got all the bodies out of the car, right?
That's right. He was a
and Paul can chime in on this. Just I know this is a broad generalization, but most people who are comfortable in that claustrophobic situation of a dry suit and all that kind of stuff, you just don't see them Breaking Bad all that often. Usually it's somebody of even temperament to be a good wreck diver. It's been my experience.
Well, also, I remember reading about some of the dives that he made and how he recovered some of the bodies. You have to remember that you're crawling in these cars going after people deceased in water where you may only be able to see a foot, and you're looking for bodies. So I don't see how the man did what he did that I read about without being affected. I mean,
and what would be more terrifying than so what happened was there was a barge came along and hit the railroad trestle, and they didn't report it. So then here comes the train, and it goes off in the drink. Imagine how terrifying that would be.
Right after it. In fact, the thing that I found interesting about that when it happened, I happened to be watching TV, and CNN reported it before Mobile.
That's not a shock to me.
Well, it did. I mean, it was right here, but that was a horrible, horrible accident that happened within minutes of one catastrophe, and then boom, here comes the train.
And so the reason that so I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with the paper, but they're trying to pressure Mobile to throw in $3 million, and they'll start rail service again through this area. So
ain't nobody got time for that.
So Raines,
let me bring it back to
tell
Mario
us what happened to
Centobie.
Mr. Centobie after he's a hero and helped us so much over here in Alabama.
First and foremost, I mean, we kind of got into the generalities about fire rescue and first responders and the way people are that do things like that, I in no way think that Mario Centobie was in any way indicative of the type of person that does heroic things. Any first will tell you straight away they're trained to do, and that's what they do. He had a problem with his wife. He had a serious problem with his wife, and I'm going to say this on the record right now. Mario Centobie was a psychopath. He was a hell of a rescue diver, but he was also a maniac.
Obviously.
And he kidnapped his wife and his daughter and drove them over to Alabama, and he got arrested and convicted of that. And they sent him to jail, and he busted out of jail. He actually overpowered somebody.
It was him and another guy, right?
It
was him and another guy overpowered a guard.
That's right. And then they shot a deputy and stole his car. Well, the deputy survived. And they got to a rest stop in Pascagoula, Mississippi on I-10. And the guy driving the car fell asleep. Or no, Centobie fell asleep. And the guy driving the car hauled ass, and left him there for nothing. And he ended up hitching a ride with a Hispanic that was driving. And he pulled over. And here's an interesting point in Mario Centobie's story. He got pulled over in Mississippi by Jackson County Sheriff's Department named Obie Wells. Now, would that name ring a bell to anybody?
I don't know who that is.
Me either.
Obie Wells was when I knew him, Obie was a Jackson Sheriff's Department. He was the only sheriff's deputy allowed to carry 2 guns. He carried 2 revolvers on his duty belt. But he was also the father of Josie Wells. Josie Wells was a U.S. Marshal that was killed in Baton Rouge a couple of years back. So there's a family history of law enforcement there. And this guy, Obie Wells, pulled him over, arrested him with a couple of other people in Harrison County, Mississippi, right before he got to his ex-wife's house. And he was on his way to murder her and probably his son too. Well, he gets thrown back in jail. He gets convicted of escaping and everything else. And guess where he ends up?
Alabama.
The Etowah County Correctional Facility for Men. And what happens there?
Well, you need to back up because he breaks out again in Mississippi, shoots an officer on the interstate.
Well, that's right.
In Tuscaloosa, and then killed another police officer in was it Hueytown? Just east of Birmingham.
St. Clair.
Yeah, in St. Clair County. So anyway, the Etowah County Jail had just been built. And this guy who was now a cop killer who'd escaped multiple times, where are we going to put him? The brand new Etowah County Detention Center. And so here's what I'm getting at. So when I watched this first episode and they said 120 of the locks on the doors didn't work, this facility was designed to be operated by one person in a control room looking at a bank of cameras with a bank of, it's a control panel that a monkey could operate because it has like has all the pod dimensions and everything on it. So you're looking at the board, pushing the button, that door should pop open. There were no buttons in the elevator. You get on the elevator and you look up at the camera and you tell them what floor you want to go to. It was designed to be this way, right? So one morning, just like Shawshank Redemption, they go to do a count and he's just gone. My God, it's a miracle.
You know how he got out?
One of the people that worked there turned off the cameras and opened the doors for him all the way out.
Right. Let him slap out. Now,
she'd fallen in love with him watching him through the camera system.
They executed him back in 2000.
I was there. It was 2005.
And now we've got reports. It's actually over 200 locks on doors in the county jail. And they got people on the show going in, and they're going to show you how bad it is. And the sheriff said, we need the nation to see how bad this is so we can get it fixed.
Well, let me tell you this. That thing was built to federal correction standards. There's never been any problem with the facility. There's always been a problem with the people running it. And it's been since I was there in 2003. And I don't know what it's like now, but if it's anything like what I saw on the television the other night, how's this for a tourism message? You want to go to Gadsden and take the and it even be a possibility you get pulled over for a DUI or something and end up in this terrifying place?
Or you take your family out to dinner in Gadsden. Now, why anybody would want to be a tourist in Gadsden, Alabama is beyond me. But
well, they got Mater's Pizza.
Through,
they got a brewery. It's a nice place.
Oh, yeah, an absolute tourist mecca, 90 miles out the other side of Birmingham, whatever. But if you happen to be driving through and you stop at a Stuckey's to get a con log, there's a very good chance that somebody may have busted out that jail and they finna jack your car with you in it.
I'm just saying, it's been a problem from the get go, and it's not the damn building; it's the people operating it. And
well, it's always the case across the nation. You know why? Because they pay minimum wage. They pay $10 an hour, even, which is hardly a living wage, for people to work in corrections. You know what? They don't train. They let you be in there at corrections office in the state of Alabama if you had multiple misdemeanors. Now, if you've had violent felonies, they don't allow it. But if you've had felony drug arrests and you've done your time or whatever, guess what? You can qualify to be a corrections officer in the Alabama Bureau of Prisons. They don't pay nothing. And this is people that have nothing to lose and nothing to gain by letting stay out of jail or just gun decking all their checks and everything else. Hell, just look at what happened to Jeffrey Epstein, for crying out loud. You think those folks were making?
So now you're on my side on the Epstein thing? The pendulum has swung.
I shouldn't have opened up that can of worms.
Yeah, really. You shouldn't have. You've reneged on your position. I love it. So anyway, this is the same jail where, going back to the Andy Griffith law, James Hayes became a multimillionaire, started doing subdivision. He became a developer, started developing subdivisions in Oaks Bluff. And when the damn roads fell in, it turned out the county commission, for some reason, didn't make him put up a bond. So the county had to go in there and fix the roads that the sheriff put in that were substandard in the first place.
Go figure.
Same thing with the beach house sheriff. That money, this whole system was designed to enrich the person in that position. That's it, in a nutshell.
Speaking of the beach house sheriff, you know, Sheriff Entrican?
We've been diving together. I know him well.
He was one of the officers that went to Atlanta and arrested Centobie right after his second attempt after he killed that police officer.
Okay, well, so when he escaped and they finally figured out that it was one of their guards in the control room who'd fallen in love with him by watching him on the TV screen and let him out, they knew where he was. So to save face, they let Etowah County go over there and rearrest him. The damn U.S. Marshals were sitting right outside. They knew where he was. It was a BS photo op is the only reason that Entrican put the cuffs on Centobie. And the same thing with his execution. You know, I know Todd went to that. We talked about it.
Oh, yeah. It was a big thing and a great, a great thing. But that girl, Donna Baker, that let him out of that prison, she let a cop shooter, a cop killer, out of jail. You know how much time she served?
Probation.
18 months.
Oh, she did do 18 months.
She did 18 months.
I thought it was suspended.
Behind the fence. Went to college for 18 months. Went to school. And then she got out on probation because she let a cop killer walk from a federal coded, federal subsidized corrections facility.
There you go.
How about that? Maybe she could get us charged today under that new hate crime statute y'all are filling over there in Alabama.
Right.
Give
All
her
right.
an extra
So
3 years.
So let's go into this other great escape. The former Nissan CEO hires a bunch of retired Navy SEALs, commandos, whatever you want to call them, and they put him in an AV equipment box, drill some holes in it, and smuggle him out of the country of Japan, where he is under indictment. And I don't know if anybody saw the Sean Connery, Wesley Snipes movie Rising Sun, but the conviction rates in Japan are damn near 99%.
He went to Turkey, right?
Lebanon.
Lebanon?
Yeah, he holds multiple. He's
Lebanon.
got passports from 3 different countries.
So do I.
My point is made. Yeah. So anyway, what's it? Give us his background, Rains. Carlos. I can't pronounce his name.
Carlos Ghosn. He was a
Galson.
Carlos Ghosn was. He was the CFO for Nissan, and he basically got charged in a giant racketeering ring involving extortion and bribery and everything else. I mean, the guy was a criminal, and he was also a criminal who didn't have frozen assets, and because of that, he was able to hire a private security firm to smuggle him out of Japan. Now, I'm here to tell you, $10 million can't fit in a briefcase. All right. But Swiss bank accounts work a certain way, and you got enough money in a Swiss bank account, you can hire anybody to get you out of somewhere. I don't care if they confiscate your passports or not. Arrangements can be made, and that's what happened with this guy. He's gone. He's off the radar. They'll never find him.
No doubt.
He's funding his life. He's gone. Japan doesn't have the resources to try to track him down. I really don't feel like they want to. He's somebody else's problem now. He'll never hold a position, but
Well, he's on Interpol's red list, so he's not supposed to be able to board a plane without that popping up. Of course, if Interpol's like 4 guys in France with a 1984 Commodore 64 or something.
He's going to have to stay
Oh,
there.
Interpol is actually a pretty tight force, but don't forget, he's in the Middle East, where, as we've learned just recently, laws just don't exist. We don't need laws at all.
You got the money, you got the laws.
All right, Paul.
right.
Tell us about the goings on in Fairhope, sewer, rec fees, all that good stuff.
Well, one of the other things is I've had a couple of people call me and ask me if I would, through the RIP report, put the complaints that we filed on Backstory podcast. And so we're going to have those in a PDF form. One is a complaint against Mr. Councilman Brown there in Fairhope. And then the other one involves Councilman Burrell and the airport scandal that was back in 2016, which we are going to go back into in a great detail. So those 2 things will be coming up. One thing that I did see that I thought was very interesting, I just caught a blip of it last night, and I think the county commission here in Baldwin County ought to look at. I believe it was the Escambia County commissioners have voted for impact fees for schools. And I think that's about time that something like that comes up. They've got the 3 meal tax.
Crazy talk, Rains, don't you think?
Well, you got
communism.
You're going to have to do something. You'll never get rid of these portables. You'll never catch up to the infrastructure. And as far as I'm concerned, the developers are not paying their damn fair share of the impact fees. But anyway, we'll look and see what comes up with that. One other thing I have is the recent Alabama Attorney General recently on Monday sent letters to state legislators urging them to oppose legislation that would allow an approved medical providers to prescribe cannabis for parents or patients they believe would benefit from it. Now, this is the part that disturbed me. Listen to these 2 quotes. Marshall expressed concern about the addiction to marijuana and worried that legislation of medical marijuana in the state would be similar to the problems that the state is facing dealing with treating opioid addiction. I mean, come on, people. That's Dark Ages talk. He goes on to say that the benefits of marijuana have been overstated and we do not know the risk from long-term marijuana use. How much more study do you need? This is just ridiculous. He warned of the use and said that he's going to push that the legislation be stopped. Now, State Senator Tim Melson, Republican Florence, chaired the Medical Cannabis Study Commission, which the state put together, and is expected to introduce his legislation, even though Marshall, the Alabama Policy Institute, and the Alabama Citizens Action Patrol all have already come out against it. In the ACIA director, Che Garrigan, told the Alabama Political Reporter, "We respect the Attorney General, but his frivolous claim that marijuana and opioids are comparable is meritless." Let me just point out one thing.
Let me point out one thing.
All right.
So, unfortunately, and we have to take his perspective seriously because he had a tragedy befall him, right?
Correct.
Paul?
Correct. Horrible tragedy.
His wife was addicted to opioids and took her own life. Was it right before he came into office or right after?
It was right at the same time or right after.
Right about a year ago.
Right. It wasn't long ago. It took about 2 years when they came in, yeah.
Well, so I'll just tell a little personal aside. I've had 2 back surgeries. Have a very, very good doctor. Actually, Andrew Sports Medicine did my last back surgery, and up in St. Vincent's Hospital. And my primary care physician actually closed his family practice. And this is the kind of guy he is. He opened the first LGBTQ community clinic in Birmingham. It's called the Magic City Wellness Center. And of course, I'm the only straight guy going into the Magic City Wellness Center up in Birmingham. But I'm not leaving this doctor. He's the best doctor I've ever found. He followed the protocols, post-back surgery, gave me the opioids per protocol, and I got to where I was taking handfuls of those things. And I was actually in a dentist office reading an old Rolling Stones magazine about Heath Ledger's cocktail that killed him, and I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, sleeping pills, muscle relaxers, hydrocodone. And so I picked up the phone and called my doctor, and he's like, "Man, I didn't know about that. Well, we got to do something about this. So what are you going to stop taking?" "Well, I really need to sleep. I'm taking handfuls of these hydrocodones. They don't do a damn thing because I've been taking them for 4 or 5 years." And so I just cold turkeyed them. And I believe it would have been easier if I would have had the option to have another option like medical marijuana where you can overdose. Is there? I guess you could theoretically, but has there ever been a medical marijuana overdose that we know of?
I don't think you can smoke that much at one time, personally.
You would die of smoke inhalation before you
carbon monoxide poisoning before the weed killed you.
You know the part that gets me about this is that is veterans. I've spent a lot of time at veterans hospitals, and they've already proven, and they're trying to approve medical marijuana now for veterans. So we know that it works. I'll give you a real good example personally. I've had 14 shoulder operations, and I've had my kidney removed because of Agent Orange. So I can't take anti-inflammatories.
Candy ass.
I can't
sitting here bitching about it.
I can't take anti-inflammatories for my shoulder, and I can't take certain meds because of the single kidney. And I'm in VA hospital, and one of them told me, he said, "Look, if you could get some medical marijuana, it probably will help you the best because my problem."
They don't care if it'll help you, Paul.
Well, they did, but they can't prescribe it.
So here's the game. Let's keep all this stuff illegal so that we can justify locking a bunch of people up.
No, we're going to be last. Alabama's going to be last.
So I have a
on
proposition for you. Let's legalize marijuana and let's make every other street drug 5-year minimal sentence.
How about legalize marijuana, approve medical marijuana, and open up gambling?
So let me
let the legislature have any of the money.
So let me tell you what goes on in the court system. So you get pulled over, and the drug dog alerts, and they go all through your car, and they don't find anything. And they get down in the floorboard, and they find the damn head of Bahia or something. And the police officer looks at it and says, "Based on my training and experience, I know this is marijuana." Okay? So now that they're selling this CDB hemp or whatever, you can buy CDB oil at the damn junior food store now, when you're gassing up your car, they've got these shops where they sell that stuff, and they sell the flower from the marijuana plant, except it has no THC in it. So now that stuff's everywhere, how can we rely on the officer's ability to observe that it is a flower from a hemp plant, but it has no THC in it? He can't possibly know that. So we got thousands of rape kits in backlog at the Department of Forensic Sciences. So we're gonna back burner all those important cases to test marijuana. I'm just saying, the ability to lock people up for that, or having probable cause. Walk up to your car, I smell marijuana. Well, yeah, I bought it at the junior food store. It doesn't have any THC in it. Have a nice day, officer. Right?
Need a couple.
Well, I'm going to chime in on this. I'm going to chime in on this because, full disclosure, I may or may not be under the influence of THC right now. So I'll go ahead and weigh in on it. Drugs are a multi-billion-dollar industry. And in the United States, the war on drugs is a multi-billion-dollar industry. People like the legislature in Montgomery don't want to legalize marijuana because that would put people out of work. Imagine the number of probation officers, the number of law enforcement officers, the number of drug task force, the number of court reporters who would lose their jobs if Alabama suddenly stopped criminally prosecuting marijuana possession. It would be hundreds and hundreds of people out of work, and nobody wants to do that. Don't even talk about Alabama being tolerant. I mean, for crying out loud, y'all outlawed dildos like 20 years ago. Did they ever bring that back to the fold? No, hell no. They don't want y'all to have nothing good in Alabama. That's why you only got 2 good football teams, for crying out loud. Well, 1.
So the literature I've read, and what I'm talking about, is getting people off opioids and saving their life, as opposed to giving them a different opioid, something like what do you call that stuff they drink? Methadone, and then turning them loose on society, right? I don't understand the concept. So the stat I read was between 7 and 20% of people who went that way, they saw a substantial decrease in the overdose rate.
Well, now there's been several states, Vermont, Maine. I know it's up in that area that they have shown a decrease in opioid addiction, and they contributed to the decriminalization of marijuana. Now that is direct, recorded, and when you think about it, if you have the opportunity to take something other than pharmaceutical, it should be looked at, because pharmaceutical pills are the biggest drug abuse is pharmaceutical pills. That is the biggest drug
right.
abuse.
You're not a drug dealer if you got MD behind your name.
Right.
And that's the biggest bunch of bullshit that's ever been sold to anybody.
That's a fact. Now, there are 9 states in this country, 9 out of 50, where marijuana is still completely illegal. Just 9.
Federally it's completely illegal. But here's the thing.
I know, but what Raines is saying is there's only 9 where are totally illegal.
Yeah, but you guys got to understand, it will never be safe, where you know what the source is, until it's legalized and people can put their money in the bank and they can make investments in their farms, and you understand what I'm saying.
Well, that's why
It's like decriminalizing doesn't do anything for me, because I wouldn't go buy a dime bag from Jimmy the dipshit that's selling it behind the Walmart. I'm just not, I would buy it from a reputable source where I knew where it came from and they hadn't been spraying roach spray on it to keep the aphids off. Right?
Well, aphids will tear up a weed plant. But anyway, the point is, let me ask you this. What state in the union had the worst opiate addiction problem? It's not West Virginia.
Pennsylvania,
Kentucky.
Ohio. I'm thinking Rust Belt.
Nope. Where? Number 1, for heroin addiction was the state of Connecticut.
Really? I thought all they did was yacht and drink things with their pinky held out.
Well, there's two types of people in Connecticut, those that yacht with their pinkies out and those that don't. And that's it. The ones that don't usually end up on heroin. And they had a huge heroin epidemic. So they start saying that they passed a law that said it's legal for medicinal marijuana, and they reduced the penalties for possession of marijuana. Guess what happened to the heroin problem? It didn't vanish overnight, but it's definitely fallen off significantly. You can look at the state crime statistics for heroin overdoses and heroin treatments and arrests for heroin in the state of Connecticut. And you can see that they've gone down. There's data out there. There's studies out there. And for somebody, the Attorney General of the state of Alabama, where do y'all find these people? I mean, the chairman of your damn committee's name toes or something like that. Where do y'all find these guys and put them in Montgomery? And that Floyd is addictive in marijuana. Does he not believe in science? He's one of the same that doesn't believe in climate change.
No, I'm real disappointed because Alabama's the one that set up the Medical Cannabis Study Commission. They set up the commission to regulate it, to look at it, to study other states. So for him to just come out and ignore all of that, I mean, you know,
and to have had a personal tragedy. Okay, so here's what we did: we gave these drug companies and doctors the ability to hook 20% of the population on opioids. Then once people start dying in droves, we say, oh, we've got to do something about all these people, you know, and of course in our short-sighted fashion, the way we're going to do it is we're going to shut it down. Okay, well, do you think the 20% of our population just said, oh, I'm going to quit doing drugs because I can't get them from my doctor? Hell no. They turned to street drugs. They turned to fentanyl. They turned to black tar heroin like it's 1977 Da Nang. I just don't understand. I don't understand the logic in this war on drugs. I understood it when it was absolute, and here we go. Now that we know more about it, and we know we've been sold a bill of goods, and now it's led to the militarization of our police forces, because when you make something contraband, the people who deal in contraband are criminals, right?
And it's going to be a lot. And it's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot more difficult too when the next state over is legal. This state's illegal.
Well,
that
Florida
state's legal.
Has medical marijuana legalized.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's going to cause a lot more. I see them being forced into it later. But Raines is right. It's the individuals that are in there. I mean, man, Marshall sounds like a dinosaur. Anyway, let's move on from that.
He's like 50. He ain't all that old.
Well,
all
no,
right,
that's what I mean.
So, can you give me a shot? Can you give me a shot of my map over here?
A shot of what?
We're turning to the map. We salvaged it from the attic. So, if you will notice the green area along the right-hand border of Baldwin County, that is the border between Alabama and Florida, east of Bay Minette. The green shaded area is the Perdido River Wildlife Management Area. And so that shows you just how close we are to Florida. On the other side of that green line is medical marijuana. So this article was by John Mullen in the Lagniappe, and it's called Land Grab. Apparently, the Gulf Coast Ecosystem Restoration Council, that's a mouthful, has prioritized and greenlit this $28 million project. They're going to add to this wildlife management area between 10 and 12,000 acres, creating a recreational corridor from where it begins all the way down to some property that the state already owns down towards Seminole on Perdido Bay. So we're finally, and I've been, going down that river since I was in Boy Scouts, and before that with my granddaddy, just fishing. And so I know what a great resource it is. It's a beautiful body of water, and I'm very proud that that it's being recognized as such. Now, if this gives you any indication of how much the county commission overpaid for the mega site, if you'll you still looking at the map over there? So there's a gray shaded area to the northeast of Bay Minette. I'm assuming that it's showing up. You see that little gray area? Can you make it out on the camera, Nick? So anyway, that is 3,000 acres that we paid $30 some odd million for, and they're going to buy 3 times that property for $28 million. Mm-hmm. Just as a comparison. Hell, we got a map. We might as well use it, right? So we'll keep you informed about that and keep our ear to the ground. The next article is by Jason Johnson. And I actually met Jason the other night. So there was a coal ash what I call a hippie get together down at Five Rivers. The damn Sierra Club put it on, and I didn't see. Not everybody had dreadlocks, but you know the crowd. And so I walked in and was asking around what was the program, and I really just wanted to snag their, pamphlets, information, because I'm really looking for an expert on this coal ash stuff to come on here and tell us definitively if I should be putting it in my morning coffee or if it's the toxic residue that I believe it is. Anyway.
You have that picture up?
You have it?
Well, I really wanted to go to that the other night, but I was having a sinus issue. But if you look at the picture, this is one of the first pictures I've seen of the power plant, the Berry power plant there, and the river the way that it is. I've seen a lot of other pictures, but this is the most startling when you look at it, that all of this is within that circle there. You got leakage from the river already just by gravity or whatever, groundwork. Just imagine if this is released. If this is released, this will be worse than BP. And we have Alabama Power just telling us to look the other way. Oh, everything's cool. There's no problem. People in Mobile and Baldwin County ought to be horrified at this situation. And be it the Sierra Club or whoever, I hope that they're still out there and they're still banging at it the same way as Baykeepers is and trying to bring this to light.
So this was a roundabout way to get to this article, but Jason was there, and I'd never met him before. He wrote the article about the my run-in with the sheriff or whatever, and I'd never met him. I just talked to him on the phone. So when I saw him, I said, "Well, man, you got this covered. I'll read the article." So anyway, he wrote another article that was in last week's Lagniappe called "Guarded Optimism," and here we're talking about the oyster season that we have going on down here in Mobile Bay. Now, there's several things that have led to the demise of Mobile Bay as ecosystem. Years ago they used to go along with this little scooper conveyor belt thing, and they vacuumed up all the oyster shells and other shells off the bottom of Mobile Bay to use in construction, driveways, things like that. And of course, they've spent millions of dollars and years trying to rebuild the reefs, and it looks like everything is going good. Prices are up. Mississippi and Apalachicola are not doing well. They're not having a good season, so our guys around here are slaying it right now. But Nick, do you have that graph? So this kind of all goes together. Right now, the water is on the rise. How many feet's it going to, Nick? You're looking at it.
9.76.
Yeah. So okay, I got it. It's 9.76. It's going to 10 feet, and I don't know if have you shown them that picture that Paul had with the. Okay, so that water is going to get right up next to the top of that dike. Very close. So anyway, this is what we keep an eye on around here when we're deciding if we're going to buy oysters. We want to see how much fresh water is coming down the rivers, getting into the bay. And also making my point again, this high water that comes, it's at the same latitude as my hunting camp. one day we will have a high water event and a hurricane or a high tide confluence, and it will top these dikes.
And
there's
if that ash,
there's no two ways about it. And this pond that you're looking at, it doesn't have any lining. They just went out there and started scooping to make a place to put this. There's no liner.
Yep.
There, it's alluvial deposits it's sand and gravel left. It's an old riverbed. And the idea that it provides any kind of protection, rain is falling on it, is seeping through and carrying these heavy metals into the groundwater. There's no doubt about it. Their own damn leachate wells show it.
and if it gets to the oysters, you'll have none of the oysters.
Oysters will be the least of our problems.
Well, I tell you what, I read a little bit about that, about your record oyster harvest, and I was pretty impressed. And I said, that's a great windfall for the state of Alabama. But then I heard that normally you'd pay $35, $40 for a sack of oysters, but apparently all the oysters have been pre-bought. And some organization has been buying the heck out of them. And I think it's because, oysters are
So are
rumored to be-
oysters the new diamonds? You talking about like some OPEC or De Beers is trying to control the oyster market?
No, because oysters are an aphrodisiac, and I believe I'd look into the Fairhope Rotary Club. Possibly.
Took you a long time to get there, man, but I'm glad you got there.
Out of Mobile Bay. And they need to be careful, too, because if they keep flushing their toilets in the Mobile Bay, it's going to straighten out that river right up there.
I didn't think
Underneath
about
that
that, taking all the bends out of the river. All right, so I want to talk about my old Scoutmaster, Red Wilkins. The legacy of his life apparently is going to be North Baldwin's no-kill animal shelter. He and his wife Judy have spent no telling how much money and time, and it really is his passion. Paul, did you catch this article? And of course, this is our friend in common, Taylor Wilkins' parents.
Right.
Red and Judy, and Red was my Scoutmaster. He's one of our venerable older statesman's attorneys around town, is how I would describe Red. And just a lovely couple and a really nice story. And I hope everybody will go out and pick up the new Lagniappe. It's actually the front page story is about their no-kill animal shelter up here in North Baldwin.
And I admire what they're doing, too, because I've met a lot more animals that I like than I do people.
And so I grew up, I was one of the last people that grew up quail hunting. We always had a quail dog, and Red always had Springer Spaniels that he trained. And so, had that connection with him when I went into scouting, and I knew Mr. Wilkins. I knew you didn't want to sit by him in a damn dove field because he was a dead-eye dick with a shotgun. And I knew that he dog hunted, and that's really all I knew about Mr. Wilkins. Now, he was on the, what year? Alabama's won so many damn national championships. I believe he was a tight end for the Bear in the what year would that have been? Back in the 50s. Late 50s, I want to say. Yeah, so he was on a national championship team. Real nice article about them. Everybody, please check it out. All right, Raines, this one's on you, man. The Orange Beach Turquoise Palace condo debacle. I think you and Rip are up on that. I'm not. So, Paul, won't you tell us about it? Or Raines, go for it.
You want to let developers come in and pay impact fees to fund your schools? Take a good look at what's happening in Orange Beach right now.
Good point.
There's two things as criminal in this country. You don't shoot cops and you don't mess with developers. Developers have deep pockets. They are villains, and they are never, ever, ever after the right thing in your community. And what's happening right now is the city of Orange Beach shook down this developer when they sold him this land and said, well, you're going to have to pay maybe, I don't know, let's just shy of $500,000 in permit fees. That's it. And they shook him down for about $500,000.
And weren't they supposed to put in
We're going to put in a fire station. We're going to put in
Right.
a beach crossing. We're going to put in we're going to use the easement on one side of your property for emergency vehicle access to the beach. And across the street, we're going to build a fire station, some other stuff. Well, guess what? Here we are 10 years later, and the city of Orange Beach hadn't done none of that. You want to take a gander at why? I would imagine that $400,000 very likely didn't go to the Public Service Department or the Public Works Department of Orange Beach. It likely went in somebody's pocket or many people's pocket. And now this developer is calling the note. He said, look, you hadn't done what you said you'd do in the contract. So guess what? According to the contract, that property goes back to me. Now, do you think that developer is going to build a fire station? You think he's going to build a dune walk? You think he's going to do anything for the people of Orange Beach? Absolutely not. He's going to take that money and he's going to do what he wants with it, because this time the law is going to be on his side. So before you start deciding education with impact fees from developers, maybe keep that in mind.
All right. So, was this the same project where Russo and crew?
I can't remember if that was or not.
I can't believe I can't remember the
That
name
was
of that project.
04, I think, or 05. I can't remember. But I that's one of the better projects on Orange Beach. For sure.
Hey, man,
for sure.
It's impressive.
Yep.
But the other thing too, in Orange Beach and Gulf Shores, you'll find that some developers are on the good list and some are on the bad list for the city. They'll let some do one thing, some do another, and I think that's part of what's going on too. Is that some people are allowed to do what they want, and here they've had just fed up. They want it either done or they want their money back.
Yep. Just think about that next time you think, well, impact fees from developers are going to fund building a new schoolhouse. Just think about what you're selling out to get that.
You
think they build schoolhouses on top of coal ash? You think they build them on farmland in Fairhope?
Well,
you think anybody will redo the schools in Baldwin County, Alabama, based on impact fees while they're selling away Gulf Shores?
Forget about it.
Well, a little bit of levity as well as, and this is going to be grandparents or anybody who's got a 7 or 8 year old. This is an article is written by is Hidden Agenda by Ashley Trice. This is Lagniappe commentary about a week or so ago. And it's called A Special Place in Hell. And I don't know if anybody's had this experience, but if you got a 7 or 8 year old girl, I guarantee you have. And that's the toy called the LOL Surprise. And I've had firsthand experience at this. It is absolutely mind-boggling. It's one of the best things I've ever seen as far as marketing. What it is basically is a little ball, and they sell it, and you open the ball, and then there's little surprises in it. Well, the ball can start out at $4.95. Then they got $14.95. Then they got a $24.95, and there's nothing in it but junk. The whole thing is to open the ball and just to tear it all apart to see what's in it. It makes a hell of a mess. It'll drive you insane if you're dealing with them. And then when you go and see, you're paying $14.95 for this, little paper ball. But the marketing on it is absolutely incredible. It's because these kids are on these iPads and they're watching YouTube videos and everything about the excitement of this LOL surprise. So if you get a chance, read the article, though. I thought it was real funny. It had me laughing all the way through because I felt the same anger, I can tell you.
All right, so we ready to get to the meat of the podcast?
Yeah, and then I'll finish up with this.
All right, so there's a new feature film that details the capital conviction secured here in Baldwin County. It's being released nationwide this week. It was tried here in 1998, and the name of the movie is Just Mercy, starring Michael B. Anderson and Academy Award winner Jamie Foxx and Brie Larson. Tells the story of Walter Johnny D. McMIllan, who was convicted in 1980 for the 1986 murder of an 18-year-old Rhonda Morrison and a dry cleaner just north of here up in Monroeville in Monroe County. The movie is based off a 2015 memoir of the same name written by attorney Brian Stevens. The twists and turns are too numerous to detail in this space, but in 1995, journalist and author Pete Early published a book called Circumstantial Evidence, Death, Life, and Justice in a Southern Town, which documented most details and went on to win the Robert F. Kennedy Book Award and Edgar Allan Poe Award for Best Crime Fiction, Best Fact Crime Book. So do we have that? Do we have a video of this, Nick? Do we cue anything up for this? No. I'd encourage you to at least go take a look at the trailer. Raines, tell me what exactly you know about this case. Now, I can give a little bit of a skeletonized thumbnail. There was a girl that was murdered at the dry cleaner store. 7 months later, they come up with a shitbird career criminal who says, I was in the truck. I was the getaway driver, and the body was over here. And then they found another guy who would say he saw the truck there in front of the dry cleaner, when in fact this man was at a damn fish fry with a bunch of people from church, and the truck they say was there, and it was a lowrider. There's an old redneck fella, one of my people, that lowered the truck, and he claims that he didn't mess with the transmission or the suspension on that truck until 6 months after that girl died. So they have no witnesses, right? They confront the district attorney with all this information. Now, he did change his tune, and if you watch the movie, they soften what Ed Bradley showed of former district attorney Tommy Chapman. Now, I worked with Tommy. I was the county administrator 2001 to 2003 in Conecuh County, and that's one of the two counties in his judicial district where he was the district attorney. Go watch that thing. He's obstinate about it. Now, I think at some point something changed his mind. Probably the fact that he was depicted as a racist moron on national television. That might have had something to do with it.
Well, this is 1988.
Tell us the Baldwin County connections, and I'll tell you where these people are now.
Well, of course, the Just Mercy article, this is in Lagniappe. This is Gabe Times again that wrote this, and really you should watch the trailer. But the prosecution was receiving help from the Baldwin County District Attorney at the time.
So the 28th judicial, or it's not the 28th. I don't know what judicial circuit it was that it was in, but they asked that the court change venue.
Correct. From
Escambia to Conecuh County, which would have been in the same district, just would have had different demographics. Lot more black folks in Conecuh County.
50% there. And
so what does the judge do? He says, I agree. We need to move venue. So they sent it to Baldwin County, where it's 16% minority
16%
at the time. Yeah. So keep going.
And the prosecution was receiving help from the Baldwin County District Attorney at that time was David Whetstone, and his assistant, Lynn L. Stewart, who had been assigned to help Ted Pearson prosecute the case.
So Lynn Stewart, who's an ADA at the time under Whetstone, is assigned to help the prosecutor who put together this sham miscarriage of justice against this man. So guess where she was up until last year? She was the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. Guess where she is now that she lost the election? She's one of the 3 members of the Alabama Ethics Commission.
Oh, boy. You can't make this up, I'm telling you.
And hey, Raines, and when she ran for office, you know what one of the plugs was? That she's got a revolver under that gown. She's a gun-toting girl from Atmo.
Well, now, the the jury was 10 whites and 2 blacks. Now remember, they moved it to where there was only 16% black representation. It came all the way down here. Got the district attorney helping them. It was 10 whites and 2 blacks were seated, comprising of 8 men and 4 women. Now here's what gets me. The 4-person was Doris Hanson, a white woman who owned a flower shop, who lived next door to Whetstone, the district attorney. I mean, this is just too crazy. Now, McMillan was...
No, it's not. It sound. If I'd never heard this story before, I wouldn't be shocked by not one damn detail,
no,
Paul.
I wouldn't either. McMillan was found guilty upon sentencing. The same Baldwin County jury recommended he spend life in prison, but in a decision paving the way for the appeal process that eventually freed him, Judge Key overrode the jury's recommendation and sentenced McMillan to death. So the judge, actually, when he erred, that gave McMillan a chance of getting out, and this all coming to light. But sad story, and I agree with Harry. We could pick out another 10 just like this easily in Alabama.
Let me go out on a limb here and tell you fellers a little bit about that. Do you know that racism freed that man? Racism cut Johnny Deuce. You want to know why?
Because he was...
Because the reason...
Yeah, we left out that... We left out that wrinkle. They one of the witnesses against him was a now he's an African American man, right? And he was married and had 9 children, and he was carrying on with a white woman, which they were sure to tell the jury about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not that it mattered one damn bit. Had anything to do with the crime he was alleged to have committed, but we got to slip that in there somewhere. How they described her to the jury.
That's absolutely right. You didn't slip in there. Was that about 3 years before that? And I'm fanning myself like Atticus Field up on his porch. About 3 years before that, same community, they had a white one got murdered. They was just sure that it was a man of color who had done it, but they couldn't prove it. So the DA and the chief of police told his detectives, you better find me some strange fruit in one tree, or else ain't nobody get it. And that rode Johnny D. And they sent one up, and that's why the judge said, forget life. We're going to give him the needle, because he may not have helped that other woman, but God, we're going to hang one for doing it.
Yeah, you're breaking up pretty bad,
To
dude.
the death penalty.
Yeah.
So
When you oh shit.
no, you got to get better internet, Reigns.
Sorry, folks.
Sorry. Well, so you can imagine a situation where they have a high-profile crime. There's a young lady from a very good family who's shot dead, and there's no evidence, and there's no suspect. So, and it sounds to me like one of the real villains in this thing was this ABI agent who approached the Turkey Neck in the Baldwin County Jail and convinced him to fabricate this story about being the wheelman. And it just nothing about this story surprises me. So I'm going to tell something, and I think the statute of limitations is run where I don't have to worry about this. But it was before I was a lawyer. So I was the county administrator there, and I have to say this: I did like Tommy Chapman. He was a likable person, and this was a place, a bygone era where on Wednesday afternoons the town shut down, and all the men in town would either, depending on the time of year, we had a dove hunting club where we paid farmers to keep their fields. We'd go out there and dove hunt on Wednesday afternoons, or either everybody went to the Evergreen Country Club and played golf or cards or whatever. Just a different kind of place. And of course, Mr. Chapman was one of the people who came over, and I used one of the chairs from his office to escape from my office in the courthouse. I had to go out the window because one of the sheriff's deputies was trying to kick the damn door off the hinges. We'll get either Connie Baggett, who wrote a story about it at the time in 2004 or 5, or Robert Bozeman from the Evergreen Current to come tell that story, because nobody would believe it if I told it. But his office was right across, right next to the county courthouse, and he personally owned the building that the county leased from him for the DA's office to occupy.
No conflict there.
And I couldn't figure out, it was just, it was an office, it was a building that had like 4 office suites in it. And after a little bit of investigation, it turns out there was only 1 power meter, 1 water meter, 1 gas meter, and the county was paying for all those suites to, and it wasn't, of course, it wasn't Tommy's decision. It was the county commission's decision to rent that property, right? Like I said, nothing surprises me. All right, Paul, it's on you, man.
All right. Last thing I got is want to remind everybody, I know this is going to excite everyone, Alabama's first congressional district election is coming up. You're going to have a primary on March 3rd. Right now there's 5 candidates in the Republican side and 3 in the Democratic side. This is a seat that was held by Republican Bradley Byrne, who's running for the Senate seat in 2020. And we're going to be trying to get with some of these candidates to see which one we favor going in. At this time, it's Jerry Carl. I've noticed that some of the other candidates have got their signs in the Fairhope area on the Good Old Boys property, so we'll be looking at that. I can tell you that one of the things that I'd like to see changed is Joe Bonner was the congressman before Bradley Byrne, and one thing I'll say about Joe is that his VA representation for veterans was excellent. I mean, you wrote a letter, you got a reply. You made a phone call, you got a reply. I mean, immediate. And it really did help a lot of people. Once Bradley got in, it just totally tanked. I mean, it just completely went down the toilet. Veterans getting any response out of his office has been very poor. So whoever goes into that seat, we're going to be trying to push them to do more for veterans. And we'll be asking probably Jerry Carl to come on one of our podcasts. Mr. Carl, you might know, was in the MPO on the Mobile side, and he's one of the ones that stood up for the no tolls on the Bayway, the I-10, the bridge toll. And that really did, him doing that kind of set up the MPO over in Baldwin County to vote the same way, and that's what ultimately killed the toll bridge. So keep that in mind. And like I said, we'll be asking some of these people to come on the air, and you'll hear more from them, and we're going to be getting more and more into politics on the Congressional and Senate areas. And then, as you know, in July is the municipal election qualifications, and August, the election in municipalities. So we're going to have some changes this year, and I can tell you that the politics in the Baldwin County and Fairhope area are going to get very, very hot, particularly Fairhope.
Okay, so here's my voter's guide for the upcoming election cycle. And this is an educated opinion, I think, and I don't think I'm being too harsh on the guy. The one person you should definitely not vote for in the upcoming Senate race is Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. Now let me tell you why. What did Raines? You got any idea what he did? Where he cut his teeth? Where he got his reputation? Raines not there. You lose him?
Might
okay.
have.
So he was the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Alabama from 1981 to 1993. Right? He was a federal prosecutor for right here.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Then he goes to the Senate for how long? 20 years. And then he becomes Attorney General. Now, what kind of knowledge do you think this man has about all the crooked, corrupt horseshit going on in South Alabama? And what does he do when he has the prime opportunity to do something about it? He's made Attorney General of the United States February of 2017, and he stays in that position until November of 2018. Have you heard of anything about the Justice Department looking at anything in his old stomping grounds?
Nothing.
Nothing. So, Mr. Sessions, you have served your country, and we thank you for your service. And another one of my positions is I'll never vote for anybody over 70 again.
And don't let the door hit you.
Well, there you go. And it's almost as foolhardy as thinking we're going to send some novice like Tuberville up there, you know?
You need new candidates. Like to see a lot more women, some minorities, people that are more interested in public service than what they can get out of the position, because that's what we got right now. We have a lot of politicians. We have the entire city council of Fairhope has got their fingers in something or another that they shouldn't have.
So do you think Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, being the Attorney General for the Southern District of Alabama, knew anything about the prosecution chronicled in Just Mercy?
Oh,
Do you think he'd know about something like that going on in his jurisdiction?
the one thing I noticed that they never want to tackle political corruption. You know, they're going to do anything they can. You can send them a 200-page document of a complaint, and they'll send you back one letter that says, "Oh, well, they don't see anything." You just, you know, they're just not going to rat each other out. I guess that's what it is. And as long as you got that problem and no term limits, that's what you're going to get. And the candidates, a lot of the candidates that run are not qualified.
You nutshelled it, man. So I'm gonna give my last little bit of advice, and it was something that my granddaddy told me a long time ago, Granddaddy Steele, about drinking, and it translates into, I guess it could be marijuana if you want to put it that way, or any other kind of recreational substance. You know, alcohol can be a great companion, but it's a terrible master. And I think that's the same way with any kind of chemical that gives you some kind of euphoric feeling. It's a terrible master. Don't overdo it. I don't care what it is. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree, and I tell you, alcohol's if you're talking about marijuana, alcohol's far, far worse than marijuana, far worse, and people are fooling themselves as they think that it is.
So one more international issue that just sprung to mind. The day after the Iranians sent missiles over to Iraq, to the air base, to try to kill Americans, looks like they shot down their own damn airliner.
Well,
with a surface-to-air missile.
It was going to Ukraine. They had two commercial planes that went out that morning. Neither one of them had any problem. On the third plane that went out, I don't know if it was over a different geographic area or whatnot, but they fired two missiles. A lot of those batteries, those firing batteries are, working on computer and stuff like that. So they're getting notified, here's a plane, and, some guy shoots off two missiles. So now we've got Russia that shot down a commercial jet and Iran that shot down a commercial jet. So, and there was notices that went out to American airliners not to fly in the area, to stay completely out of the area. So it makes you wonder how many, why they didn't get a notice. And the other thing I thought was very interesting, I'll do a little research and find out, is that a good bit of the passengers, a third or half of the passengers, were Canadian. So I don't know what Canada's interest is in Ukraine, but evidently it must be. But our prayers go out to all those people, and I don't know, it's just a tragedy of war. Some people want to say, oh, it's collateral damage. 170-something people dying is not collateral damage, folks.
So finally, Gulf Coast newspapers, if you go to their website, gulfcoastnewstoday.com, they have an article, Gulf Coast Coastal Alabama Community College new president speaks at First Friday Forum. And what I want people to do is go look at the picture. You got three guys in their 70s who were the chairman of the ACCS board, then Dr. Pouncey, the new president, and then the chancellor, and it could just as easily be a funeral home ad is what it looks to me like. Back in the day, what do you think the average age of a college president is today compared to 1965?
No idea, probably.
Well, it's gone from an average of about a 40-year-old to the average of about a 75-year-old. All you guys your age, Paul, y'all are hanging in there way too long. We thank you for your service. Take your retirement. It's that way. And the golf course is that way.
Right. And more younger people got to get involved. This affects you more than anybody else.
Well, okay, so you're a 35-year-old. You have a PhD. You've been the dean of something somewhere to even be up for the president's job. How do you compete with a guy that's been the president at, Lurleen B. Wallace Junior College for 35 years?
Right.
Well, you can't.
That's been handpicked. It's hard to break in. Yeah.
And this new chancellor and his ties to his former employer, who is now receiving millions of dollars in work from the secondary education system. Of course, nobody's looking at that. What the hell are you talking about, Rip? That's just crazy talk. Mm-hmm. Thinking that there's something improper about that. You know that the bid law excludes professional contracts, so they can hire whoever they want and pay them whatever they want. And there's no ethical conundrum whatsoever.
Well, you're in Alabama. You can complain. Investigations go nowhere. No one goes to jail. No one's held accountable. And all you're doing is encouraging more corruption by those individuals.
So guess what David Whetstone's doing now?
Probably an advisor to some sort. That's right. Yeah, I know.
The other night they were. He's the legal analyst for Channel 5 News. Mm-hmm. Don't you think they'd be interested to know about his hand in this miscarriage of justice, which is a very benign way of saying what happened?
Yeah, I love these cases like McSherry's, where everything's on video, and then you got the
mayor of Spanish
Fort, all on video, and we're all looking at the video. You can see the video, and then we're going to be told that what we're seeing is not really what we're seeing. So we're going to have to see how all this plays out, I guess. But this is Alabama, so nothing would surprise me at all.
And so finally, pivoting on this Coastal Alabama Community College issue, this is one that's coming up, and I burned up the internet and the phones yesterday working on it. The Southwest Alabama Police Academy opened down here in conjunction with Faulkner State Community College in 1971 and operated that way until 2006, when the examiners of public accounts were called in, and they found that one of the employees there, they were buying sports apparel from a company that her husband owned, which if they did more than $7,500 worth of business with any one vendor for anyone, or bought one particular item, that should have been bid. Well, they either didn't know or weren't aware, however you want to say it, and they got in trouble over it. The examiners came in. Typically, the examiners of public accounts come in every year and audit you and give you an exit audit, and they say, hey, by the way, You didn't follow the bid law here, and you need to. That's a corrective action. You need to make sure it doesn't happen anymore. Well, instead of doing that, they indicted both of the employees down there. It turns out that the APOS, the Alabama Police Officer Standards Commission, in their enabling legislation, they're only allowed to hire 2 employees. So it's the executive secretary who's we'll get into that in the next episode, but he was the police chief in Ozark, Alabama. He gets tapped to head the APOS commission. So he uses money from SWAPA to hire his buddy from Ozark to be their investigator. And he's the guy who comes down and investigates. I mean, it's just the craziest crap you've ever heard of. And so here's the real story. SWAPA goes under. They don't hire anybody to reopen it. So the Alabama legislature appropriated this money so that Baldwin County would have a APOS certified school whereby a green recruit would come in and leave a certified APOS police officer. So guess what's going on now? The sheriff's department down at their pistol range down here by the Golden Triangle by Mayor Will's bungalows that MBU owns, you know what I'm talking about, Steelwood. They build a building next to the firing range, and that is now the APOS Baldwin County site. There's one person who is paid directly, is my understanding, by the county commission, the secretary, and then some of the sheriff's department employees, they get reimbursed for their time when they're doing instructions there. So my question is, where's this $500,000 that we were supposed to be spending to have a police academy here? Because now, so when they prosecuted these people, and I've read through all the trial transcripts, guess who the prosecutor was?
Who?
State Senator Matt Simpson. Guess who the chancellor of the secondary education system was at the time? Congressman Bradley Byrne. Guess who the examiner of public accounts auditor was? Well, hell, I can't remember her name. But by the time they get to trial, she's no longer just an auditor for the examiners of public accounts. She's now the chief financial officer for Bishop State Community College.
I can't make this up.
So what happened to the money? Because at the time, there were only 3 employees of APOS. So guess how many they got now? I found this out because I called up there and tried to get somebody on the damn phone yesterday.
How much? How many?
10. So are they taking the money that was appropriated so that Baldwin County would have a facility to train new recruits and make them certified officers? Is that where that money's going?
Who are they answerable to? For the
That's a real good question.
I know. And then if you go they'll ask, what is your business in asking?
Well, we're going to get to the bottom of this. I've been corresponding with the sheriff trying to get some answers, and I don't think he knows. Maybe we'll find out from some of our state representatives who sponsored the legislation. All right, boys and girls, that's it for today. I hope y'all have a good one. I have to go to I got to go to work. What are you doing this weekend, Paul? Getting you some Viagra at the bike ride, the Fairhope Rotary bike ride?
Yeah, I got to get on that Rotary site as soon as I get off here. I like that big blue on there advertised.
I do too. All right, well, y'all have a good weekend. What number are we on?
17.
17.
18, my lucky number next week.
All right, well, I hope you make it till then. I hope you make it home without a ticket. Good luck with that.
Me too.
See y'all.
How many minutes?